The paradox of letting go. Have you ever tried so hard, given everything, and still found peace always just out of reach? The tighter you hold on, the faster life slips away. But when you release, something miraculous happens. The world doesn't respond to those who chase it. It opens itself to those who move in rhythm with their own heartbeat. The paradox of letting go. There is a story, simple yet profound, told in Buddhist circles about a man in a forest. He sits quietly, his hand wide open. A butterfly lands gently on his palm. For a long time, the two remain still, perfectly in tune with the moment. The man breathes softly, careful not to disturb the presence of the delicate creature. But then, a subtle desire creeps into his heart, wants to hold on to this beauty. Slowly, he begins to curl his fingers, and the butterfly, sensing the shift, flies away. This story, like a whisper, reveals one of life's deepest truths. What is meant for us arrives when we are open and leaves when we cling. Letting go isn't the abandonment of desire, it is the refinement of it. It is not the act of caring less, but the sacred art of trusting more. In our modern world, we are taught to chase, to cling, to control, hustle harder, work longer, never stop moving. This is the anthem of ambition. We treat life like a mountain to conquer, as if each moment is an obstacle in the way of something greater. But this belief system, though widespread, is flawed, because peace, purpose, and joy are not trophies to be won. They are invitations to be received. What if the very act of striving is what keeps these things out of reach? What if our grip, our hunger, our endless forward motion is not a solution, but the problem itself? Letting go seems counterintuitive. We fear that if we loosen our hold, everything will fall apart. That if we don't try hard enough, we will never achieve what we desire. But the paradox is this: when we release our desperate need to control, we make space for something wiser to enter. When we stop grasping, the world begins to lean in. Imagine holding sand in your palm. The tighter you clench your fist, the more it escapes through your fingers. But if you open your hand, the grains remain. So it is with life. So it is with peace. Letting go is not passive. It is active surrender. It is alignment with something deeper than strategy, more enduring than willpower. It is the courage to trust the rhythm of life instead of imposing our own. In this chapter, we will explore the paradox of letting go through stories, metaphors, and practices. We will dismantle the myth of control and examine how surrender, far from weakness, is actually the birthplace of clarity and strength. The paradox of letting go. There is a story, simple yet profound, told in Buddhist circles about a man in a forest. He sits quietly, his hand wide open. A butterfly lands gently on his palm. For a long time, the two remain still, perfectly in tune with the moment. The man breathes softly, careful not to disturb the presence of the delicate creature. But then, a subtle desire creeps into his heart, wants to hold on to this beauty. Slowly, he begins to curl his fingers, and the butterfly, sensing the shift, flies away. This story, like a whisper, reveals one of life's deepest truths. What is meant for us arrives when we are open and leaves when we cling. Letting go isn't the abandonment of desire, it is the refinement of it. It is not the act of caring less, but the sacred art of trusting more. In our modern world, we are taught to chase, to cling, to control, hustle harder, work longer, never stop moving. This is the anthem of ambition. We treat life like a mountain to conquer, as if each moment is an obstacle in the way of something greater. But this belief system, though widespread, is flawed, because peace, purpose, and joy are not trophies to be won. They are invitations to be received. What if the very act of striving is what keeps these things out of reach? What if our grip, our hunger, our endless forward motion is not a solution, but the problem itself? Letting go seems counterintuitive. We fear that if we loosen our hold, everything will fall apart. That if we don't try hard enough, we will never achieve what we desire. But the paradox is this: when we release our desperate need to control, we make space for something wiser to enter. When we stop grasping, the world begins to lean in. Imagine holding sand in your palm. The tighter you clench your fist, the more it escapes through your fingers. But if you open your hand, the grains remain. So it is with life. So it is with peace. Letting go is not passive. It is active surrender. It is alignment with something deeper than strategy, more enduring than willpower. It is the courage to trust the rhythm of life instead of imposing our own. In this chapter, we will explore the paradox of letting go through stories, metaphors, and practices. We will dismantle the myth of control and examine how surrender, far from weakness, is actually the birthplace of clarity and strength. The trap of over-informing. There's a hidden cost in constantly striving. The cultural message of "do more to be more" exhausts us from the inside out. When we chase success or certainty with all our energy, we lose connection to the now. We become detached from the very life we are working so hard to improve. The paradox is that the things we most desire, love, peace, meaning, cannot be taken by force. They arrive gently, in moments of quiet openness. The more we demand them, the more they slip through our fingers. When we over-effort, we move from a place of fear. We believe we are not enough as we are, so we must prove our worth. This state of mind keeps us locked in a loop. The harder we try, the further we drift from our center. Letting go interrupts that loop. It creates a sacred pause where we can ask ourselves, am I chasing this from love or from lack? Am I reaching for something or running from something? True transformation happens not in the surge, but in the stillness that follows the exhale. What letting go is not. Letting go does not mean resignation. It does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you give up on your dreams. Rather, it means loosening your grip on how, when, or whether they unfold. It means trusting that life, in its infinite wisdom, knows the route better than your limited mind ever could. We often mistake attachment for commitment. But true commitment flows from clarity and purpose, no from desperation or fear. When we cling to something because we believe we cannot live without it, we move from love to dependency. And in that shift, the thing we love most often begins to slip away. To let go is to honor the autonomy of all things. It's to recognize that love is not ownership, that success is not control, that life is not a script but a symphony. You cannot conduct every note. Sometimes you must simply listen. The power of surrender. There is an ancient strength in surrender, not the collapse of will, but the alignment of it with something greater. Surrender doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you no longer fight what is already moving. Think of a boat in a river. You can row with all your strength against the current, or you can learn to steer with the flow. Letting go is choosing to navigate with trust instead of resistance. When we surrender, we conserve energy. We make better decisions. We act not from panic, but from presence. Surrender opens the door to intuitive wisdom, to solutions that don't come from logic, but from inner alignment. And this surrender isn't blind. It is built on the quiet, knowing that what is meant for you cannot miss you. That the life designed for your growth and peace is not something to hunt, but to welcome. Releasing outcomes. So much of our pain comes from attachment to outcomes. We visualize how something must look, how someone must respond, how a journey must unfold. When reality deviates, we suffer. Letting go is not apathy toward outcomes. It is openness to possibility. It is releasing the expectation that things must look a certain way in order to be meaningful. Life is more creative than we are. When we release our mental blueprints, we allow miracles to enter. Often, the best chapters of our lives are the ones we never saw coming. Practice releasing outcomes by affirming, I trust that what unfolds will either nourish me or teach me. Either way, I win. Anchoring into presence. The art of letting go brings us back into the now. The present moment is the only place where life actually happens. Everything else, the past, the future, is a mental projection. When we let go, we return to the breath, to sensation, to awareness. We stop performing for a tomorrow that doesn't yet exist and begin living today with intention. Presence is not a concept, it's a practice. And like any practice, it strengthens with attention. Begin with small moments: washing dishes, walking, sipping tea. Invite your whole self into the experience. Let each moment be enough. When you anchor into presence, you stop needing to grasp. You realize that this moment holds enough beauty, enough depth, enough peace if only you would look. The gift of the unseen. Letting go also means trusting what you cannot yet see. It means believing in the unfolding of your story, even when the next chapter hasn't revealed itself. This is perhaps the hardest part of the paradox. You are asked to move without a map, to trust without a timeline, to release without a guarantee. But look at nature. The tree lets go of its leaves long before it sees the new buds. The soil accepts the fallen seed without knowing what will bloom. This is the way of life. Letting go precedes growth. Surrender makes room for transformation. So even in the uncertainty, even in the in-between, stay open. Something is always working beneath the surface. Pain as a teacher. Letting go often follows pain. Not because suffering is required for transformation, but because pain reveals the weight we've been carrying. Sometimes we don't know how tightly we've been holding on until our hands begin to hurt. Pain is not a punishment. It is a messenger. It tells us where we're misaligned. It tells us what no longer fits. When we listen, it leads us to release. We resist pain because we fear it will consume us. But pain, when welcomed with compassion, becomes a guide. It shows us the places in ourselves that are asking to be freed. To let go is to honor the wisdom of pain, not to glorify suffering, but to respect its signal. Ask yourself, what discomfort are you avoiding? What truth is your pain pointing you toward? Emotional detox, the cleansing of release. Letting go doesn't just change our mindset, it shifts our emotional landscape. When we release attachments, identities, and expectations, we also clear emotional residue. Tears may come, so may anger, grief, relief, joy. It is all part of the emotional detox that happens when we stop clinging. These feelings are not obstacles. They are energy leaving the body. They are stories unspooling. They are memories finally being seen. Let them pass through. Do not rush the process. Emotional release is not a crisis. It is a clearing. Creating space for what's real. The beauty of letting go is that it creates space. And space is sacred. It is not emptiness, it is readiness. In the space we clear, truth can breathe, authenticity can grow, love can find room to root. We cannot welcome the new while clinging to the old. We must empty to be filled. We must release to receive. So as you let go, ask, what am I making space for? Clarity, connection, creativity, peace. Let the answer guide your surrender. Daily rituals of release. Letting go is not a one-time decision. It is a practice, a daily choice to soften, to surrender, to trust. You might begin your day with an affirmation, "Today, I choose peace over control." You might end your day with a journaling ritual. What am I still gripping? What can I offer to the unknown? Or take a symbolic action, write down what no longer serves you and burn it, or place it in water and watch it dissolve. These gestures remind the body of what the mind sometimes forgets, that you are allowed to be free. Integrating the paradox, here is the final paradox of letting go. The more you release, the more you receive. The more you loosen your grip, the more life comes closer. The less you need, the more peace you find. Letting go is not a loss, it is a liberation. You do not walk away from life. You walk into it with empty hands and an open heart. In surrender, you do not disappear. You return to stillness, to presence, to yourself. Let this be your beginning. Let this be your homecoming. Are you chasing or escaping? What if your pursuit of dreams isn't inspired by passion, but by fear? We run not just toward what we want, but away from what we can't face. Stillness terrifies us not because it's empty, but because it holds everything we've tried to avoid. Are you chasing or escaping? From the outside, chasing looks like ambition. It looks like energy, passion, drive. People applaud you. You're praised for waking early, for pushing through, for refusing to rest. The world rewards speed, and so you keep running toward goals, toward success, toward something that seems just out of reach. But here's the quiet truth that rarely gets spoken. Many of us are not running toward something, we're running from something. We chase not because we're inspired, but because we're afraid. Afraid to sit still, afraid to listen to the silence, afraid of what we'll feel if we stop. We've confused momentum with meaning. But a life of constant motion doesn't always mean we're progressing. Sometimes we're simply avoiding the disguise of drive. We label ourselves as motivated, driven, focused, but underneath the surface, something else pulses: anxiety, scarcity, insecurity. Our effort is laced with fear. Our dreams become demands. Our striving turns into suffering. Chasing can look like discipline, but discipline that arises from fear is not devotion, it's desperation. It's the refusal to be with what is. It's the constant need to shape reality into what we think it should be, rather than allowing ourselves to fully meet it. Silence as a mirror. What would happen if you stopped? Stopped chasing, stopped planning, stopped running. Most people fear that if they pause, everything will collapse. That if they let go, their lives will fall apart. But often, the real collapse comes from never resting, never listening, never being. Silence is a mirror. It reflects back everything we've tried to outrun: the regrets, the grief, the longing, the questions we've buried beneath productivity. Stillness invites us to meet those parts, not to fix them, but to witness them, to acknowledge what's been driving us. Are you escaping or evolving? Ask yourself honestly, is my goal rooted in joy or in fear? If no one ever saw me succeed, would I still want this? Am I moving from inspiration or from the fear of staying still? When we move from fear, we call it ambition. But when we move from alignment, we call it purpose. The world doesn't need more success stories fueled by burnout. It needs wholeness. It needs people brave enough to stop pretending they have to earn their worth. True evolution doesn't come from escape. It comes from presence, from facing what's here. The cost of chasing. The chase comes with a price. It wears down our nervous system. It disconnects us from our bodies. It trains us to ignore intuition. It convinces us that peace is only possible when we arrive somewhere else, when we get the job, the partner, the answer. But peace doesn't live at the end of a finish line. It's not a reward for performance. It's a quality of attention, a state of being that arises when we stop running and start listening. Every time we delay stillness, we delay truth. Every time we resist silence, we resist healing. What if the very thing you've been chasing is already trying to find you, but it can't reach you because you won't stop running? When action becomes avoidance, sometimes we use action as armor. It shields us from reflection. The busier we are, the less time we have to feel, to question, to acknowledge what's really happening within. Our calendars become comfort blankets. Our routines become rituals of avoidance. But not all action is rooted in purpose. Some is rooted in panic. We become addicted to doing, not because everything must be done, but because we're afraid of what might surface in the stillness. The question is not whether we're moving, but whether we're aligned. Are we acting from truth or simply reacting from fear? The biology of busyness. The chase doesn't just exhaust our minds, it burns through our bodies. Chronic striving activates the stress response. Cortisol spikes, muscles tighten, breath shortens. Over time, this becomes our default state. We normalize dysregulation. We call anxiety drive. We label exhaustion as hard work. But beneath the surface, our systems are screaming for relief. When we let go of the chase, we let our bodies breathe. We return to a rhythm that supports restoration. Healing isn't just emotional, it's physiological. Stillness is not a luxury, it's medicine. Reclaiming your center. Letting go of the chase means reclaiming your inner compass. It means no longer outsourcing your direction to the noise around you. Instead of asking, "What should I be doing?" we ask, "What is true for me right now?" Instead of reacting to pressure, we respond to presence. We pause, we listen, we act with intention rather than impulse. This is the beginning of sovereignty, not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, embodied kind, the kind that whispers, "I trust myself to know when it's time to rest, to rise, to reach." The practice of stopping. Stopping isn't passive. It's one of the most courageous acts in a world that measures worth by productivity. Practice stillness in small moments. Close your eyes between meetings. Take a walk without your phone. Breathe before responding. End your day with reflection rather than more stimulation. Stillness doesn't require hours of meditation. It begins with minutes of mindfulness. Each pause is a protest against the lie that you are only as valuable as what you produce. Each breath is a bridge back to yourself. From chasing to choosing. The moment you realize you've been chasing something, you gain the power to stop. That pause is not the end, it's the beginning. It's the birthplace of conscious choice. You can begin to choose differently, not from reaction, but from awareness, not out of lack, but from wholeness. You may still want the dream, the relationship, the success, but your energy shifts. You're no longer begging life to give you something, you're allowing life to meet you. This is where magnetism replaces pursuit. What's aligned is drawn to your presence, not your pressure. What are you really after? Behind every chase is a deeper desire. We chase money to feel secure. We chase recognition to feel seen. We chase love to feel enough. But what if we stop asking life for the symbol and start going directly to the source? Security doesn't come from a number in a bank account. It comes from inner stability. Visibility doesn't come from social applause. It comes from self-acknowledgement. Love doesn't come from external validation. It comes from remembering that you are already whole. When you connect with the deeper need, you stop outsourcing your peace. You return to the well within. Let desire be gentle. Desire is not the enemy. It's beautiful, sacred, creative. What distorts desire is desperation. When you chase from fear, desire becomes demand. When you trust from fullness, desire becomes invitation. Let your longing be gentle. Let it breathe. Let it move at its own pace. There is a quiet magic in letting desire live in your heart without needing to control how or when it arrives. You can want deeply and still be free. You can hold vision and still be present. That's not contradiction, that's mastery. The return to enough. The chase often begins with a belief, I am not enough as I am. This belief fuels the cycle of self-abandonment. You leave the present in search of a future self who finally deserves rest, but that future never arrives, because the self who is worthy has always been here. Enoughness is not a goal, it's a recognition. You don't become enough when you achieve more, you remember you're enough-ness when you stop trying to prove it. This is the essence of returning, not arriving somewhere new, but waking up to what has always been true. Let the chase fall away. Let enough be now. Living in the gentle middle. In between chasing and giving up, there is a middle path, a space where we hold dreams softly, where we release urgency but not vision, where we walk with intention but not tension. This is the way of the gentle warrior, the one who moves with purpose but not panic, who trusts that life doesn't need to be wrestled into shape, but simply met with openness. Living in this gentle middle means allowing grace to replace grasping. It means being loyal to your heart without being attached to how it all unfolds. You can want, you can hope, but you do not have to push, you do not have to run. The invitation of the present. Every chase pulls you out of the present. It tells you that peace is elsewhere, that happiness is conditional, but the present moment is always offering you an invitation. Come back, sit down, be here. This is where the richness is. This is where you are real. You don't have to earn your way into presence. You only have to stop abandoning yourself. The invitation is not grand. It doesn't shout. It arrives quietly, like breath, like birdsong, like soft light through a window. Accept it. Stop running. Start receiving. Chasing is about control. Receiving is about trust. When you chase, you grip. When you receive, you open. There is profound power in saying, I am ready to receive, not because you've hustled for it, not because you've manipulated circumstances, but because you've become a safe place for peace to land. Stop running from emptiness. Embrace the space it offers. That space is what allows the miracle to enter. Receiving doesn't require you to do more. It requires you to become more available. A sacred pause. Right now, wherever you are, a pause. Notice your breath. Notice the tension in your shoulders. Notice how much you've been trying and how little you've rested. Let this moment be a reset, not a performance, not a strategy, just a pause. Ask yourself, what am I chasing right now? And then ask, what would happen if I stopped? Let the answer come slowly. Let it surprise you. Reflection questions. 1. What do I believe I need to chase in order to feel worthy? 2. When I stop moving, what emotions arise within me? 3. What part of me feels unsafe in stillness? 4. How can I shift from control to trust in this season of my life? 5. What does my body need me to stop running from? Let these questions be portals. Let your breath be your anchor. Let this chapter be your permission slip to rest. The mythic power of stillness. What if stillness could take you further than force ever could? In a world addicted to motion, stillness is a quiet rebellion. Your answers aren't in the noise, they're hidden beneath the silence. The mythic power of stillness. There's a forgotten rhythm to life. A rhythm deeper than the buzz of calendars, louder than the noise of expectations. It doesn't rush. It doesn't scream. It waits patiently beneath the surface of all things, whispering a truth we've been conditioned to ignore, that stillness is not a threat, it is a teacher. Stillness is not about doing nothing, it's about becoming still enough to feel everything. It is in the silence that the wisdom comes. It is in the space between thoughts, between breaths, that truth rises. But we are not taught this. We are taught the gospel of speed. We're taught that movement equals meaning, that if we're still, we're behind, that if we're quiet, we'll be forgotten. And so we race. We fill every moment. We exhaust ourselves with the noise of becoming. Yet nature moves differently. The trees grow without strain. The moon rises without announcement. The tides shift without fanfare. Stillness is not passivity, it is alignment. And when we return to it, we do not lose momentum. We gain depth. In this chapter, we will explore the sacred role of stillness in personal transformation. You will learn how quiet is not absence but the presence of something deeper. You'll discover that the most powerful movement in life often begins with a pause. The mythic power of stillness. There's a forgotten rhythm to life, a rhythm deeper than the buzz of calendars, louder than the noise of expectations. It doesn't rush, it doesn't scream. It waits patiently beneath the surface of all things, whispering a truth we've been conditioned to ignore. That stillness is not a threat, it is a teacher. Stillness is not about doing nothing, it's about becoming still enough to feel everything. It is in the silence that the wisdom comes. It is in the space between thoughts, between breaths, that truth rises. But we are not taught this. We are taught the gospel of speed. We're taught that movement equals meaning, that if we're still, we're behind, that if we're quiet, we'll be forgotten. And so we race, we fill every moment, we exhaust ourselves with the noise of becoming. Yet nature moves differently. The trees grow without strain. The moon rises without announcement. The tides shift without fanfare. Stillness is not passivity, it is alignment. And when we return to it, we do not lose momentum, we gain depth. In this chapter, we will explore the sacred role of stillness in personal transformation. You will learn how quiet is not absence, but the presence of something deeper. You'll discover that the most powerful movement in life often begins with a pause. When stillness feels foreign, for many of us, stillness feels unfamiliar. It feels strange to stop, to do less, to unplug. The moment we enter silence, our minds protest. We become restless. Our fingers reach for a screen. Our thoughts scatter. This is not a flaw, it's a result of conditioning. We've built identities around what we do, not who we are. We've filled every space so thoroughly that emptiness feels uncomfortable. But what if that discomfort is not a warning, but an invitation? Stillness calls us back to ourselves. It strips away distraction. It asks us to listen, not to the world, but to the whisper within. The strength in slowness. Stillness is not weakness. Slowness is not stagnation. In fact, some of the most profound transformations happen beneath the surface, invisible to the eye. Think of a seed underground. For weeks, nothing appears to change, but deep in the soil, roots are forming, foundations are being laid. Our inner lives work the same way. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean growth isn't happening. Stillness allows for integration, for reflection, for healing, listening beyond the noise. In the noise of the world, it's easy to confuse loudness with truth. But truth doesn't scream, it doesn't compete. Truth emerges in stillness. It comes when we quiet the inner critic, when we stop rehearsing our worth, when we let go of the need to prove anything to anyone. Stillness is where your soul speaks. And if you want to hear its message, you must become quiet enough to listen. The still lake of the mind. Imagine a lake on a windless morning. The water is perfectly still, so still that it reflects the sky above with flawless clarity. Now imagine that same lake stirred by wind or disrupted by stones. Its surface breaks, ripples distort the reflection, and its clarity disappears. The mind is like that lake. When it is still, it reflects reality clearly. But when it's constantly stirred by thoughts, by stress, by distraction, we lose sight of what's true. Meditation and mindful awareness aren't about escaping the world. They're about allowing the waters of the mind to settle. In that stillness, we see more clearly not just the world, but ourselves. Stillness and creativity. We often associate creativity with brainstorming, planning, building, but creativity, in its truest form, is born from spaciousness. Many of the world's great artists, thinkers, and innovators found their best ideas not in chaos but in calm. In the moments when they stopped trying to solve and started allowing inspiration to arrive. Stillness doesn't just sharpen perception, it opens the channel for creative flow. It allows insight to arise from places deeper than logic, from intuition, from the soul. If you're feeling blocked or burnt out, ask yourself, when was the last time I was truly still? The world moves around the still. In the center of every storm is a calm. In the heart of a cyclone, there is stillness. That center the eye is not weak. It is the stabilizing point. The world may rage around it, but it holds. You can be that center. You do not need to match the chaos around you. You do not need to spin just because others are spinning. You are allowed to stay grounded, to breathe deeper, to move slower. The world doesn't need more urgency. It needs anchors. Let stillness be your power. Let presence be your protest. Let peace be your revolution. Daily stillness practices. You do not need to leave your life to practice stillness. It begins in the small, sacred moments. Sit in silence for 5 minutes each morning. Drink your tea without distraction. Pause before you speak. Notice the breath. Move in and out. Stillness is a skill, not a destination. It deepens with practice. The more often you return to it, the more it transforms from unfamiliar silence into familiar sanctuary. You will notice changes, more patience, greater clarity, stronger boundaries. You will begin to respond, not react, to rest, not retreat, to create, not control. Redefining productivity. Stillness challenges our culture's definition of productivity. It invites us to measure life not by output, but by alignment, not by noise, but by meaning. Rest is productive, reflection is productive, pausing before rushing is deeply productive. Pain is the teacher of release. What if your pain isn't here to punish you, but to free you? Suffering doesn't mean you're broken. Sometimes it means you're being rebuilt. Pain cracks the illusion so that the truth can finally enter. Pain is the teacher of release. Pain is inevitable in life, but suffering is often prolonged by resistance. We brace ourselves against the truth. We resist the unraveling. We hold tightly to what is slipping away. But pain, when held with compassion, becomes more than a wound. It becomes a window. Pain teaches us where we are still clinging. It reveals our attachments, our fears, and our illusions. It doesn't come to destroy it comes to dissolve the walls we've built around our hearts. It asks us to let go, not because we are weak, but because the next version of our life can't begin until we do. In this chapter, we will explore how pain, when approached with stillness and surrender, can be one of life's greatest teachers. You'll learn how to listen to your pain, not as an enemy but as a sacred messenger that arrives not to punish, but to prepare you for freedom. When you work from stillness, your actions carry more weight. They come from depth, not frenzy, from clarity, not confusion. You do less but with more power. We must stop glorifying burnout and begin honoring balance. When the world doesn't understand, your stillness may confuse people. They may not understand your quiet. They may question your boundaries. They may push you to move faster, speak louder, do more. That's okay. You are not here to validate their urgency. You are here to be an invitation to presence. Let your life be a message. There is another way, a slower way, a wiser way, a freer way. Closing reflection. Stillness is not a pause in your journey, it is part of your journey. It is the soil from which vision grows. It is the silence where truth returns. It is the breath that connects you to now. You do not need to chase the next thing. You need only to become still enough to see what has been waiting for you all along. Let go of the rush. Return to the rhythm. Come home to the quiet strength of your own stillness. Letting go is not giving up. Surrender is not the same as quitting. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. Giving up comes from fear. Letting go comes from faith. Sometimes you win not by holding on tighter, but by releasing what's holding you back. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood concepts in human experience. To many, it feels like defeat, like failure, like walking away. We've been taught that to persevere is to keep pushing, keep climbing, keep holding on no matter the cost. But what if there are things we're holding that no longer hold us? What if our grip is what's keeping us stuck? What if letting go isn't weakness but wisdom in motion? Seasons of surrender. Letting go is not a one-time decision, it's a rhythm. Just like nature follows seasons, so do we. There are seasons for building, for blooming, for bearing fruit. And there are seasons for rest, reflection, and release. What worked in one season of your life may not serve you in the next. What once felt purposeful may now feel heavy. What once gave you life may now drain it. To let go is to honor the changing seasons of your soul. It is not to shame the past, but to thank it and move forward. When you listen closely, you will hear the inner whisper. It's time. Time to release. Time to trust. Time to create space for the next season to unfold. The inner strength of surrender. We often associate strength with resistance, with grit, endurance, and refusal to bend. But some of the strongest people are those who have learned the art of softening. To surrender takes immense courage. It asks you to trust what you cannot yet see. It invites you to loosen your grip when everything in you wants to control. It asks you to leap before you know where you'll land. Letting go isn't passive, it is powerful. It is the bold act of aligning with truth. And the moment you do, a strange peace begins to rise. Not because everything is solved, but because you've stopped fighting what is. This peace is not found in perfect plans, but in honest presence. This chapter is a reclamation of the true meaning of letting go. It is an invitation to explore the difference between quitting and releasing, between avoiding and aligning, between fear-based surrender and soulful liberation. Chapter 4. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood concepts in human experience. To many, it feels like defeat, like failure, like walking away. We've been taught that to persevere is to keep pushing, keep climbing, keep holding on no matter the cost. But what if there are things we're holding that no longer hold us? What if our grip is what's keeping us stuck? What if letting go isn't weakness but wisdom in motion? This chapter is a reclamation of the true meaning of letting go. It is an invitation to explore the difference between quitting and releasing, between avoiding and aligning, between fear-based surrender and soulful liberation. Quitting versus releasing. Quitting is reactive. It often comes from burnout, defeat, or fear. It's a collapse, not a choice. It's the moment we stop trying because we've forgotten our strength. Letting go, on the other hand, is intentional. It comes from clarity, from listening to the quiet voice that says, "This is no longer mine to carry." It requires discernment and courage. It's not about running from pain, but about refusing to prolong it unnecessarily. You can release something with love and still honor what it meant to you. Letting go doesn't erase the journey, it refines your direction. When holding on hurts, there comes a time when holding on does more harm than letting go. We stay in relationships that no longer reflect our truth. We cling to careers that exhaust our spirit. We grip old versions of ourselves long past their time. Why? Because we've been taught that endurance is noble, that if you just hold on long enough, things will change, that letting go is for the weak. But there is a deeper strength in knowing when to walk away. There is wisdom in knowing that just because something once served you doesn't mean it still does. Letting go is not giving up. It's saying yes to life again. The fear of disappointment. One of the reasons we resist letting go is because we fear letting others down. We're afraid of being misunderstood, judged, or seen as flaky. We feel responsible for others' expectations, and we carry a silent burden to meet them even if they no longer align with who we are. But living to avoid disappointment is a recipe for disconnection from yourself. You are not responsible for other people's comfort with your evolution. You are only responsible for staying true to your integrity. Letting go may disappoint some, but it will liberate you. And in your liberation, you will become a living permission slip for others. Letting go and identity. We don't just hold on to people or plans, we also hold on to versions of ourselves. The achiever, the fixer, the loyal one, the strong one. These identities give us comfort and familiarity. They tell us who we're supposed to be. But sometimes they become cages. When life invites you to grow, it will ask you to loosen your grip on who you've been. Letting go may mean grieving the person you were in order to make space for the person you're becoming. This grief is not a regression, it's a rite of passage. You are not betraying yourself by evolving, you are honoring yourself by expanding, embracing the unknown. Letting go almost always leads us into uncertainty. This is where most people hesitate, because the known, even if uncomfortable, feels safer than the unknown. But growth lives in the unknown. Letting go is an invitation to expand your threshold for mystery. It calls you to trust, not because you see what's next, but because you believe something new is possible. You don't need to know what's coming to walk in peace. You only need to know that your surrender creates space for life to surprise you. The future is not built through control. It is invited through openness, trusting what rises. Once you let go, something new begins to rise. A new vision, a new version of you, a new rhythm. But you must protect this emergence. The world will tempt you to run back to the familiar, to reattach, to doubt, but don't rush what is forming. Let the silence grow roots. Let the spaciousness do its work. Let clarity take its time. This is sacred ground, and it's okay if it doesn't move fast. Let go of the need for immediate answers. Trust the deeper timeline. Let go, and then watch what rises. Embracing the unknown. Letting go almost always leads us into uncertainty. This is where most people hesitate, because the known, even if uncomfortable, feels safer than the unknown. But growth lives in the unknown. Letting go is an invitation to expand your threshold for mystery. It calls you to trust, not because you see what's next, but because you believe something new is possible. You don't need to know what's coming to walk in peace. You only need to know that your surrender creates space for life to surprise you. The future is not built through control. It is invited through openness, trusting what rises. Once you let go, something new begins to rise. A new vision, a new version of you, a new rhythm. But you must protect this emergence. The world will tempt you to run back to the familiar, to reattach, to doubt, but don't rush what is forming. Let the silence grow roots. Let the spaciousness do its work. Let clarity take its time. This is sacred ground, and it's okay if it doesn't move fast. Let go of the need for immediate answers. Trust the deeper timeline. Let go, and then watch what rises. Reflection, a new kind of strength. Take a breath, not to brace yourself, but to soften. Letting go is not losing, it's aligning. It's choosing to no longer carry what was never yours to hold forever. The strength you thought came from holding on, that was survival. The strength you now discover in letting go, that is freedom. When you no longer have to force, control, or cling, you become something greater than strong. You become still, still and soft, still and aware, still and deeply, profoundly alive. Let this be your truth now. You do not have to hold it all together. You are not failing by releasing. You are freeing yourself by remembering who you are beneath the grasp. Letting go is not giving up. It's giving into a wiser rhythm, to a softer path, to a fuller life. Pain is the teacher of release. Pain is inevitable in life, but suffering is often prolonged by resistance. We brace ourselves against the truth. We resist the unraveling. We hold tightly to what is slipping away. But pain, when held with compassion, becomes more than a wound. It becomes a window. Pain teaches us where we are still clinging. It reveals our attachments, our fears, and our illusions. It doesn't come to destroy, use it, comes to dissolve the walls we've built around our hearts. It asks us to let go, not because we are weak, but because the next version of our life can't begin until we do. In this chapter, we will explore how pain, when approached with stillness and surrender, can be one of life's greatest teachers. You'll learn how to listen to your pain, not as an enemy, but as a sacred messenger that arrives not to punish, but to prepare you for freedom. Listening to the pain. Pain has a voice, but most of us are too busy numbing it, silencing it, or trying to escape it to hear what it's saying. Pain speaks in subtle ways, in tension held in your shoulders, in the lump in your throat, in the heavy silence of an unresolved memory. When you pause to listen, you'll notice that pain doesn't just scream, it whispers. It tells you what needs your attention. It shows you where your boundaries were crossed, where your heart was broken, where your hope was betrayed. To listen is to turn toward yourself. It is an act of compassion, and compassion, not resistance, is the doorway to release. Let the pain speak, let it rise and be seen. Not because you want it to stay, but because you want to let it go completely. The fire that frees. Pain has a way of burning through illusions. The moment we stop trying to control it or cover it, it begins its sacred work, refining, clearing, purifying. Think of pain as fire, not a wildfire that destroys indiscriminately, but a controlled flame burning away what no longer serves you. Burnout, false identity, misaligned loyalties, shame you inherited, but never consented to carry. There is wisdom in this fire. It does not seek to harm you, but to prepare you for a lighter way of being. Pain invites you to become more honest with yourself, to name what hurts, to admit what's broken, to release the need to pretend. The fire doesn't just destroy. It clears space for something truer to rise, the gift hidden in the hurt. Pain is never random. Even when it arrives uninvited, it often carries a coded invitation to reclaim your truth. It asks you not to suffer for suffering's sake, but to become awake. In the aftermath of heartbreak, loss, or betrayal, it's natural to want to numb or move on quickly. But true healing doesn't ask you to move on. It asks you to move in, move inward. Sit beside your pain. Ask it, what are you trying to teach me? You may find the gift isn't in the event itself, but in what it awakens. A realization of your worth, a deeper boundary where none existed before, a gentler self-love that had long gone quiet. Pain doesn't just leave a mark, it leaves a map. If you follow it with compassion, it often leads you home. Allowing pain without becoming it. You are allowed to feel pain without becoming pain. There is a difference between honoring what hurts and being defined by it. Pain is an experience, not an identity. When you allow pain to move through you, like weather through the sky, you create space for transformation. But when you grip it linked to the story, to the judgment, to the resentment, you become tethered to what was never meant to stay. Say to yourself, I can feel this fully, and I can let it move on. Grief can visit, but it doesn't have to own the house. Rage can rise, but it doesn't have to rule the room. Sadness can speak, but it doesn't get to script your story. You are not your pain. You are the one witnessing it, the one surviving it, the one growing because of it. Transformation through tenderness. You don't have to conquer your pain to heal. You don't have to dominate it, defeat it, or fix it in a hurry. You simply have to meet it with gentleness. Pain, like a child in distress, softens when it is seen, heard, and held. When you turn toward your pain with curiosity instead of condemnation, you create the conditions for transformation. Tenderness doesn't mean fragility is a sign of profound strength. It means you trust yourself enough not to shut down. It means you've stopped fighting what is and started embracing what can be. Wholeness is not the absence of pain. It's the presence of compassion in the middle of it. Healing doesn't always look like light. Sometimes healing doesn't feel like bliss. It feels like grief, anger, fatigue. Sometimes you feel worse before you feel better. This is not regression, it's revelation. You're not going backward, you're going deeper. Healing is not always graceful. Sometimes it's messy, slow, unglamorous. But every tear shed, every truth spoken, every memory honored, it all counts. It all heals. Don't judge the process by how it looks. Judge it by the honesty it requires. Let your healing be real, not perfect. Let it take the time it takes. Transformation through tenderness. You don't have to conquer your pain to heal. You don't have to dominate it, defeat it, or fix it in a hurry. You simply have to meet it with gentleness. Pain, like a child in distress, softens when it is seen, heard, and held. When you turn toward your pain with curiosity instead of condemnation, you create the conditions for transformation. Tenderness doesn't mean fragility is a sign of profound strength. It means you trust yourself enough not to shut down. It means you've stopped fighting what is and started embracing what can be. Wholeness is not the absence of pain. It's the presence of compassion in the middle of it. Healing doesn't always look like light. Sometimes healing doesn't feel like bliss. It feels like grief, anger, fatigue. Sometimes you feel worse before you feel better. This is not regression, it's revelation. You're not going backward, you're going deeper. Healing is not always graceful. Sometimes it's messy, slow, unglamorous. But every tear shed, every truth spoken, every memory honored, it all counts. It all heals. Don't judge the process by how it looks. Judge it by the honesty it requires. Let your healing be real, not perfect. Let it take the time it takes. Renewal in the wake of release. Once pain has passed through, something else takes its place. A clearing, a quiet, an unfamiliar sense of lightness. This is not the absence of grief, but the presence of space. Space for joy, space for clarity, space for you. The truth is, pain, when allowed to complete its cycle, doesn't leave you empty, it leaves you more whole. You realize what's real, what matters, what no longer belongs. In that knowing, you begin to rise, not by force but by flow, not with resistance but with grace. Pain is not the end of the story, it's the turning point. Reflection prompts. 1. What pain have I been avoiding, and what might it be trying to teach me? 2. Where in my life have I mistaken pain for punishment, when it may be a path? 3. How can I meet my pain with tenderness instead of judgment? 4. What freedom or clarity has ever followed a season of deep emotional release? 5. Am I willing to sit with what hurts in order to find what heals? Let these questions invite honesty. Let your honesty invite healing. Let your healing invite peace. You don't have to fear the pain. You only have to let it guide you to what you're finally ready to release. Loving without attachment. The highest form of love doesn't bind, it liberates. To love without attachment is not to love less, but to love more purely. When we stop trying to own people, we finally start seeing them. Loving without attachment. Real love doesn't cling. It doesn't control, manipulate, or shrink. Real love expands. It flows freely. It honors the individuality of the other while remaining rooted in connection. But for most of us, the word love has been tangled with attachment. We associate love with need, with grasping, with fear of loss. We believe we are loving deeply when in truth, we are often attaching tightly. This chapter is a call to untangle love from attachment, not by loving less, but by loving differently, with more spaciousness, more presence, more reverence. Because only when love is free can it truly grow. The illusion of possession. Attachment disguises itself as devotion. It whispers, if I love you, I must hold on to you. If I care, I must control. If you leave, it means I failed. But love is not possession. It is not proven by proximity or permanence. It is proven by presence. You can love someone deeply and still let them go. You can wish someone well and still walk away. You can cherish a connection without needing to own it. This is the shift, from owning to honoring, from fear to freedom. Attachment says, don't leave. I need you to feel whole. Love says, be free. I'll feel whole regardless. Presence over possession. When you love someone without attachment, you don't need to manage their journey. You don't need to control how they feel, where they go, or what they choose. Instead, you become present. You listen without fixing. You witness without judgment. You support without smothering. Loving presence is spacious. It says, I am here with you, not because I need you to fill my gaps, but because I enjoy your being. This kind of love builds trust. It invites truth. It welcomes growth. It doesn't collapse when challenged, because it's not built on fear, it's rooted in presence. To love without attachment is to choose clarity over clinging. It is not to withhold love, but to release the illusion that love requires holding on, respecting the path of another. To love someone without attachment is to trust their journey even when it doesn't follow the script you had in mind. It means letting them grow, even if it means growing away from you. It means respecting their truth, even if it challenges your comfort. It means not interfering with their becoming, even when your heart longs to shape it. Real love does not demand compliance. It celebrates authenticity. It doesn't say, become what I need. It says, become who you are, and I will honor that. When we let go of attachment, we stop trying to edit someone's path. We stop treating love like a contract and start holding it like a gift freely given, never coerced. This kind of love liberates everyone it touches. It leaves room for mystery, it invites change, it honors freedom, the grace of letting someone be. There is a sacred tenderness in stepping back and letting someone be exactly who they are, without needing them to shrink, shift, or serve your story. This is the grace of non-attachment, witnessing another's unfolding without trying to rewrite it, cheering for their liberation, even if it leads them in a direction different from your own. It is not the absence of love, it is love in its most mature form. A love that doesn't try to possess the butterfly, but delights in its flight. Let this be the way we love, open-handed, open-hearted, and rooted not in fear of losing, but in celebration of becoming. Because when you no longer need someone to complete you, you can finally love them without condition. Love as a mirror, not a cage. When we practice non-attachment, love becomes a mirror, not a cage. It reflects truth instead of trapping identity. In this way, love becomes a form of clarity. You are no longer loving in hopes of being completed. You are seeing the other person clearly, not through the lens of your unmet needs, but through the lens of presence and deep acceptance. This love says, I don't need you to become anything other than who you are right now. I choose to walk beside you, not ahead of you. I do not hold you captive to my comfort. This mirror love is honest. Sometimes it reveals incompatibility, sometimes it reveals a deep soul resonance, but it always respects what is, instead of clinging to what should be. This is not lesser love, it is liberated love. Réflexion prompt. 1. In what ways have I confused love with attachment? 2. Have I ever loved someone by trying to change or control them? 3. What does it feel like to be loved without condition, without possession? 4. Can I honor someone's path even when it doesn't intersect with mine? Woo. What kind of love do I most want to give and receive? Let these questions guide you into a love that frees rather than confines. Let your heart expand into space, into stillness, into truth, because love, when untangled from fear, becomes not a tether but a light. Release to receive. You cannot receive with clenched fists. When you stop needing, life starts giving. The space you create through letting go becomes the vessel that grace fills. Release to receive. We live in a culture that tells us the more we want something, the harder we should hold on. Chase it, hustle for it, demand it. But spiritual wisdom and lived experience tell a different story, that real receiving begins with real release. This chapter is an invitation into the paradox of abundance. The more tightly you grasp, the more you repel. The more space you create, the more freely life can enter. What you release does not mean you've lost it, means you've made room. To truly receive, we must learn to open, to let go of timelines, to surrender expectations, to trust that what is aligned will not need to be forced. What is meant for you will recognize your stillness, not your struggle. Spaciousness is power. What if the universe isn't withholding from you but simply waiting for space, for quiet, for softness? We spend so much of our energy chasing answers that cannot land because our inner world is too crowded. Crowded with plans, projections, fears, and narratives that say we must earn our worth. But when we release these mental habits, we don't become lazy, we become available. Available for inspiration, for synchronicity, for connection. Life doesn't fill what is full. It fills what is ready, what is open, what is willing to be surprised. Letting go of outcome. We often attach to not just what we want, but how and when it should arrive. This attachment breeds impatience, anxiety, and disillusionment. It contracts our energy instead of expanding it. To release is not to abandon your desire, but to surrender your script. You can still hold your vision, but you must place trust above timeline and openness above outcome. When you do, you leave room for miracles, outcomes more beautiful than you could have imagined. Receiving isn't about force, it's about flow. The more you release the how, the more you open to the wow. Trust that letting go doesn't weaken your power to receive it, multiplies it. Letting go of outcome. We often attach to not just what we want, but how and when it should arrive. This attachment breeds impatience, anxiety, and disillusionment. It contracts our energy instead of expanding it. To release is not to abandon your desire, but to surrender your script. You can still hold your vision, but you must place trust above timeline and openness above outcome. When you do, you leave room for miracles, outcomes more beautiful than you could have imagined. Receiving isn't about force, it's about flow. The more you release the how, the more you open to the wow. Trust that letting go doesn't weaken your power to receive it, multiplies it. Living in the posture of openness. There is a posture of the soul that invites miracles. It's not rigid or tense. It doesn't march or chase. It stands open, like a window welcoming the wind, like a shoreline waiting for the tide. Openness is trust embodied. It's the daily act of choosing presence over pressure, of loosening the mental grip and letting life meet you where you are. When you live this way, you find that what once felt far begins to move toward you, not because you hunted it down, but because you stopped pushing it away. In openness, you're not passive, you're aligned, you're not indifferent, you're intentional, you are receptive, ready, and rooted in faith. Stay open, because sometimes what you're waiting for is already on its way if you just make space for it to arrive. Lection prompts. E. Where am I holding so tightly that I've created resistance? 2. What expectations can I release to make more space in my life? 3. When was the last time I allowed myself to fully receive? 4. What does it look like to open mentally, emotionally, spiritually? 5. What am I finally ready to let go of so that grace can enter? Let these questions become doorways. Let your release become your invitation. Let your surrender create space for something more beautiful than your plans, trusting the unseen flow. You don't have to see the whole path to take the next step. What if uncertainty isn't the problem, but the portal? Faith isn't knowing it's moving anyway, trusting the unseen flow. The human mind craves certainty. We want maps, guarantees, clarity before action, but life rarely works that way. The most meaningful transformations don't come with road signs, they come with mystery. This chapter is about learning to trust what you cannot see, to walk not by sight, but by intuition, to let go of the illusion of control and allow the current of life to carry you not blindly, but bravely. What if the reason your next chapter hasn't arrived isn't because you're not ready, but because you haven't yet released your grip on needing to know? Trust is not passive, it is active alignment. It is stepping forward, not because everything is certain, but because you've decided to trust the wisdom of the river beneath your feet, walking by inner compass. Your intuition is not a whisper to be ignored, it is the ancient voice of your soul remembering the way. While logic demands a reason, intuition invites you into resonance. You may not be able to explain why, but your body knows. Your breath slows, your heart eases, you feel a quiet yes. This is not recklessness, it's trust. Trust in your inner compass, trust in your own knowing. When you don't need life to be linear, it becomes luminous. The strength of stepping without certainty. Every journey begins with a step often taken in uncertainty. The great paradox of growth is that it usually begins not when you feel ready, but when you finally let go of needing to be. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the choice to move despite it. It is the quiet decision to trust the step, even when you can't yet see the floor beneath your feet. Sometimes clarity doesn't come before action, it comes through it. The question isn't, do I have a guarantee? The question is, can I walk without one? Can I trust that life is still trustworthy, even when I can't see the map? Trusting the unseen flow doesn't mean you'll never doubt, it means you'll keep going anyway. Because what waits for you on the other side of that step may just be more sacred, more surprising, more spacious than anything you could have planned. The river knows where it's going. You do not have to know every bend of the river. You do not need to control the direction of every current. The river flows because it trusts gravity. It does not argue with the rocks. It curves, adjusts, and continues. What if your life is no different? What if every unexpected twist is not a detour but an invitation? What if uncertainty is not chaos but choreography? When you surrender to the river, you stop trying to swim upstream. You let the water take you softly, steadily toward the exact destination meant for you. Your job is not to predict every turn. Your job is to stay in the boat, stay present, stay open. Let the current do what it does best. Trust the unseen flow, anchored in trust, not in outcome. To live anchored in trust means you stop basing your peace on how things unfold. You learn to find steadiness not in external results, but in internal alignment. This is what makes you unshakable. Not your certainty, but your surrender. Not your control, but your consistency in returning to trust. Results will shift, plans will change, but the deeper current of life remains. When you trust the unseen flow, you give life permission to surprise you, to bring beauty you didn't demand, to unfold in ways you couldn't design. You become someone who doesn't just hope things go well, you become someone who knows you'll be okay even when they don't. That is the essence of freedom. That is the art of trusting the unseen flow. Réflexion. Prompts. E. Where in my life am I demanding certainty before taking a step? 2. What would change if I chose trust over control? 3. What have I labeled a setback that might actually be redirection? 4. How does it feel to live like a river, curving, flowing, trusting? 5. What is one area where I'm ready to surrender the outcome and trust the process? Let these questions guide you toward a deeper kind of faith. Let your surrender be your strength. Let your uncertainty become sacred ground. Returning to yourself. 1. You are not lost, you're just layered. 2. Coming home to yourself isn't a destination, it's a remembering. 3. When you stop becoming, you start belonging. Chapter 9. Returning to yourself. After all the chasing, the releasing, the healing, and the surrendering, there is something quiet that begins to stir. A soft pulse beneath the noise, a breath beneath the struggle. It is the whisper of home. Not the home made of bricks or memories, but the one that lives beneath your ribs. The one you've been seeking in love, in ambition, in certainty. This home was never gone. You were simply too far from stillness to hear its call. This final chapter is a homecoming. To your breath, to your truth, to your most unshaken essence. It is not about becoming someone else, it's about removing what never belonged to begin with. It's peeling back the stories, the masks, the striving, until you are face to face with the version of you that doesn't need to be chased, fixed, or improved. The you that is already enough. The quiet power of being. We are raised to believe our value lies in doing, in performing, in proving. But beneath all of that is a quieter truth. You are worthy even when you are still. When you return to yourself, you realize that peace is not earned, it is remembered. You don't have to hold it all together. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You only have to be here with your breath, with your body, with your presence. Being is the most honest thing you can do, and it is enough. Reclaiming the forgotten self. The world gives you many roles: student, parent, achiever, caregiver. But beneath all roles is a self that remains whole. A self that does not need to hustle for belonging. A self that is deeply rooted, even when the surface shakes. This self is not defined by your pain or your past. It existed before any title was placed upon you. Returning to yourself means remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. In this remembering, you reclaim your center. Not a perfect version of you, but an honest one, a whole one, the one who no longer chases worth, the one who simply is. Living from wholeness. To return to yourself is to begin living from wholeness, not lack. You are no longer acting out of fear or trying to fill a void. Instead, you act from alignment. You create from truth. You relate from fullness, not from craving. The practice of returning. Coming home to yourself is not a one-time epiphany. It is a daily rhythm, a sacred remembering. You return when you sit in stillness without distraction. You return when you take a breath instead of reacting. You return when you speak your truth with softness and strength. You return when you forgive yourself for forgetting. Every pause is a portal. Every breath is a bridge. Every moment you choose presence over performance, you come home. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect. You don't need the world's permission. You only need your own. Let each return be gentle. Let it be real. Because your life doesn't begin when you become someone else. It begins when you become fully yourself. Reflection prompts. 1. What parts of myself have I been chasing that were already within me? 2. When do I feel most connected to who I truly am? San. What false identities am I ready to release? 4. How can I remind myself daily that I am already home? 5. What does it feel like in my body, my mind, and my heart to return to myself? Let this be your closing note. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are not too late. You are already on the path back to where you've always belonged. You are home. This doesn't mean you won't have hard days or doubts. It means those moments don't define you. They pass through, but they don't uproot you. Because your roots are deep, your self is remembered, your home is within. Living from wholeness is not perfection. It is authenticity. It is meeting yourself in each moment with compassion, with honesty, and with an open heart. And when you forget as you, will you know the way back? Because you've already come home once, and you can always return.